Welcome to Business Studies with Smartele. Today we are going to be looking at yet another interesting topic, but still in the circles of business, and we'll be looking at banking. So if you want to know more on banking, I urge you not to move an inch. Stay glued to that screen and I'll see you in a second. Welcome back to Business Studies with Smartele. This is a channel which allows you to learn on different business tips, and if you're a business student out there, this is a channel which will allow you to learn on different business principles and concepts, and basically all the information that you need for you to get that distinction, that exam. And it's simple. All you need to do is subscribe, watch, and learn. Okay, now, like I said earlier on, today we are going to be looking at yet another interesting topic, and I will be looking at banking. So if you want to know more on banking, don't move an inch, stay glued to that screen so that we get to learn together. Okay, now, before we actually look at the different types of banks that we have in our countries or in our different communities, I think it's important that I explain to you what a bank is. Okay, so what is a bank? Now, a bank is simply a financial institution which receives money from members of the public, keeps that money for them, and sometimes lends out that money to other people when the true owners of that money don't need it immediately in form of loans and overdrafts, and you charge those people what is known as interest for using that money. Okay, so at the end of the day, those people, when they get that money, when they borrow that money from the bank, they will have to pay back that money, the principal amount, with interest. Okay, so that is what is known as a bank. Okay, so what we are simply saying is that a bank will actually receive money from members of the public who happen to be account holders, and they need to keep that money for them. But if the true owners don't need that money immediately, the bank will lend it out to other people in form of loans and overdrafts. Okay, so that is what is known as a bank. Okay, now banks can also be defined as financial institutions which will receive money from members of the public. Again, when I say members of the public, I mean account holders, and they need to receive those deposits and then keep those monies or deposits for those people, and sometimes the bank may channel those deposits into lending activities such as loans and overdrafts, and then those people will pay back with interest, and then the true owners will also be given part of that interest. Okay, that is another definition for a bank. Okay, so now that we've talked about what banks are, I think let's move on and look at the different types of banks that we find in our different countries or in our different societies. Okay, now we are saying there are basically two main types of banks, and the first type of bank is what is known as a central bank. Okay, now we have what is known as the central bank, and then we also have the second type, which is known as commercial banks. Okay, so those are basically the two main types of banks that you find in different countries. Okay, so let's begin looking at the first one, which is the central bank. Now we are saying the central bank is the main bank in any given country or land. Okay, so this is actually the main bank which controls all the other financial institutions that you're going to be finding in all these different places. Okay, so each country will have its own central bank. So most countries will only have one central bank, and for example, if you go to Europe, you have what is known as the European Central Bank. Now the European Central Bank is the central bank which controls all these other European countries that you find in Europe. Okay, and then if you come to America, you have what is known as the Federal Reserve. Okay, now the Federal Reserve is the central bank. It controls all these other financial institutions in the United States. And then if you go to Nigeria, you find what is known as the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now the Central Bank of Nigeria is the one which controls all these other banks and financial institutions that you find in different parts of Nigeria. And then if you come to Botswana, you find what is known as Bank of Botswana. Okay, now the Bank of Botswana is the Central Bank of Botswana. It controls all these other financial institutions within Botswana. If you come to my country, which is Zambia, you're going to find what is known as the Bank of Zambia. Now, the Bank of Zambia is the central bank in Zambia. It controls all financial matters within Zambia, and we'll look at some of the functions of central banks as we go on in this video. But if you're finding this information to be very helpful, please don't forget to subscribe down there, hit the like button, leave comments down there. Like I keep telling you, this is not my channel alone, it is your channel also, so you can also suggest the different topics that you want me to discuss on with you on this channel so that we get to learn together. Okay, so leave comments, suggest the topics that you want me to discuss with you, and I'll definitely do that for you. Okay, and by the way, don't forget to smash the notification icon there. There's an icon which looks like a bell. The moment you subscribe, it will pop up. It looks like a bell. Click on that one and say all, so at each time I upload a new video, you get to be notified. Okay, now we move on, and like I said, those are the different central banks that you find in different countries. I've given examples of the European Central Bank for Europe, the Federal Reserve for America. I've given the Central Bank of Nigeria, that is the central bank for Nigeria, and then I've also talked about the Bank of Botswana, those of you that are watching from Botswana. And if you're in Zambia like me, we have what is known as the Bank of Zambia. Okay, now those are central banks for these different countries that I've mentioned. Okay, now as a country that you live in, okay, that country will also have its own central bank, and we are saying these central banks are very important because they perform quite a number of functions. Okay, now let's look at some of the functions of central banks. Okay, now we are saying the central bank is very important, and why? Okay, this is why central banks are important. Okay, we are saying the central bank is very important in any given country because, one, it is responsible for issuing out coins and notes to other financial institutions such as commercial banks and other institutions that will deal with money. Okay, so it is actually the central bank which issues out notes and coins to other banks and financial institutions. So it is very important that as a country you have what is known as a central bank, because that is the one which is going to be responsible for the issuance of coins and notes. Okay, without the central bank, it will be very difficult for these other financial institutions to have coins and notes to deal with. Okay, now with that being said, again, that should mean that the central bank is actually responsible for issues to do with printing of money. Okay, so the central bank is actually given the mandate of seeing to it that money of a particular country is actually printed in the right quantities and at the right time. Okay, so the central bank will issue out notes and coins, and also it is responsible for seeing to it that money is printed. Okay, now we move on and look at the other function of the central bank. Now the central bank is very important because it is actually responsible for issuing out licenses and registering other financial institutions in a given country. Okay, so no financial institution can actually be allowed to operate in any country if it has not registered with the central bank. It is not given a license to operate with by what is known as the central bank. So the central bank will see to it that all these other financial institutions in the country are registered and they are given actually licenses to begin operating. So those financial institutions will have to meet certain requirements in order for them to qualify to start operating. And it's actually the central bank that is going to see to it that these financial institutions meet these requirements. Okay, so the central bank is very important for that reason. And then again, the other reason why the central bank is very important is it actually controls all the money and physical policies within that country which it is operating in. Okay, so the central bank is very important because it sees to it that all these other financial institutions are following the laid down physical or monetary policies which the country is supposed to actually go by. Okay, so the central bank, we are saying, is very important because it will actually see to it that the rules, the guidelines, okay, the regulations to do with money or finances in a particular country are actually followed by all those stakeholders that are involved in dealing with finances. Okay, now the central bank will also control issues to do with foreign exchange, the rates at which the currencies will be exchanged for other currencies. So it is actually important that as a country you have what is known as the central bank. Okay, now if you found this information to be very helpful, again, please don't forget to subscribe down there, hit the like button, drop comments there. You can actually tell me what you think. Okay, if there's anything that you feel I should actually share with you on this channel, please drop the comments down there, and I'll definitely do that for you, because like I keep telling you, this channel is not mine alone, it is yours as well, because without you people, this channel will mean nothing. So get to suggest the different topics that you want me to discuss on with you. Okay, now when we talk about the central bank, one thing that you need to understand is that the central bank is not allowed to deal with individuals. Okay, the central bank does not deal with individuals, and equally it does not deal with other businesses and organizations. Okay, it will only deal with financial institutions such as commercial banks, bureau de change, microfinance institutions or companies, and so on and so forth. Now, those are the ones that the central bank will deal with. Okay, so as an individual, you can't go to the central bank and open an account, or as a business, you can't go to the central bank and open an account with them. They don't deal with businesses or individuals. Okay, now I hope that is something, and I hope you have learned something from that. Now let's move on and look at the other type of bank or banks that you find in our society. Now, we mentioned at the beginning of this video that the second type of banks that we find in society is what is known as the commercial banks. Okay, now what are commercial banks? Now, commercial banks are simply business banks. Okay, because the word commercial technically means business. Okay, so when we talk of commercial banks, we are simply saying these are banks that are going to do businesses with other stakeholders in society. Okay, so as an individual, you can actually open an account with a commercial bank. Okay, or as an organization, if you have a business, you can find a commercial bank and then open an account with it, and then you start saving with that bank. Okay, so that is the second type of banks that we have in our society, which is commercial banks. Now, we have different types of commercial banks in different countries. Okay, now I'm going to mention some of the examples of commercial banks that exist in our countries. Now, if I mention a bank, that does not mean this video is actually sponsored by that bank. Okay, I'm just mentioning these banks as examples so that you get to know some of the examples. So even when I was talking about those different central banks, it doesn't mean that this video is actually being sponsored by those central banks that I mentioned. So these are just examples that I'm giving. That's a disclaimer there. Okay, now we are saying commercial banks are business banks and they are allowed to deal with members of the public. Okay, so as an individual, you can open an account with any commercial bank in your society. Okay, now examples of commercial banks, we have what is known as a First National Bank. I'm sure some of you, actually not some, most of you are familiar with First National Bank, because as you are watching videos on YouTube, you see adverts of First National Bank being run. Okay, so FNB is an example of a commercial bank. Okay, then we also have ABSA. Okay, ABSA, former Barclays Bank, it is also a commercial bank. So we have StanChart, we have Stanbic, we have, if you're in Zambia, we have Indo-Zambia Bank, we have Atlas Mara, we have Zambia National Commercial Bank. Now, depending on the country that you are living in, okay, you are going to have these other smaller banks. Okay, all those banks are known as commercial banks. Okay, because they actually do business. Okay, so we have different commercial banks depending on the country that you live in. You may have quite a number of banks that you can actually do business with. Okay, so those are some of the examples of commercial banks that you find in different places, but we are simply saying that all these commercial banks are supposed to register with the central bank. Okay, they are supposed to register with the central bank and see to it that all the monetary and physical policies that the central bank puts in place, they follow, and they will receive their notes and coins from the central bank. Okay, so on that note, I think we come to the end of our video for today, and I hope you learned something. I'll see you in my next video. I love you. Bye bye.